Welcome to Mindwhack, everyone, the go-to podcast for content marketers ready to conquer their AI fears and grow their careers. My name's Lori Kirkstead, and I'm the founder of Content Uncomplicated.
And I'm Spider Graham, and I'm the founder of Gravity Clamp. And Lori, one of the things we've done several times during this podcast, of course, we talk about using these different tools.
Yep.
One of the questions that's come up is, great, I'm using a tool like ChatGPT, but how do I ask it what I'm trying to find out? I don't necessarily know how to talk to the AI in a way that it can return to me some of the things that are going to be helpful to me, right? Because my solution is not the same as everybody else's solution.
Yep.
And you and I were talking about things like Midjourney. And Midjourney is a fantastic tool, but for the longest time, in order to be a practitioner, to use Midjourney, you almost had to write in a specialized coded language for it to understand what it is you were doing and to return to you the results that were at least close to what you had up here. So Let's talk a little bit about how we might talk about prompts for different things we're looking for, especially from a content marketing standpoint.
Yes, I love that. And the biggest thing I want to tell everybody is that you aren't a writer anymore necessarily. You're a prompt engineer. Everyone needs to know how to prompt because these tools are ubiquitous. And if we all put the same stuff in, we're all going to get the same stuff out. And that's the problem with a lot of people who are giving feedback about these tools. I've heard it a lot where people are dipping their toes and they say, ChatGPT is not really that good. It doesn't really give me good writing. It's all jumbled, kind of all sounds the same. Like, yeah, because you have the base model, you have the freemium, you have to make it your own. We all got vanilla and we're all putting our own flavors in here. That's the whole point, right? So I'm really glad you brought that up because with large language models, it almost forces us to come to terms with how good or bad of communicators we are as humans, because we're using English now, or whatever language you speak. We're using human language, how we communicate. You don't need to know, like in our last episode, you don't need to know Python. You don't need to know all these things. So great. What's the barrier now? It's like, I actually don't know how to communicate to get what I want. That is a critical skill. That's why I think content marketers are really good at using large language models like ChatGPT. You know why? Because this is the hill that I will absolutely die on. It's all about the brief. I've been in what do you think, Spider? Like, comment
Well, I'm
on
just
that.
saying, what do you say to someone who's feeling a little bit apprehensive about jumping into working with AI because they don't know how to ask those questions, they don't know how to approach it? And you say, okay, we just use English as our language predominantly for the people we're talking to, but what does that even mean? Is there some sort of, it's almost like programming. Do I have to put it in a certain way? Are there certain terms I need to use? How flexible is it, et cetera?
You hit the nail on the head. It's still sort of programming in a way. It's just different. And I like what you talked about in terms of order, because it's not just here's everything I need. Order is one thing, the quality of how you ask it. So I like to do two things. I bring it back to what we are already doing. So let's use an example of, let's say we're writing a blog, and let's talk about what we're talking here. Let's talk about emerging trends in AI for content marketers, because that's what we do. If I'm going to ask a writer to write something for me, I have to think of every single thing. Otherwise, you're asking them to guess. So we have stuff about our brand, right? Brand guidelines, voice tone. Everyone knows that it's very important. Maybe not every brand has them written down somewhere, but that's what happens number one, at least in terms of how it sounds. This doesn't sound very good. The second part is, well, what are we actually going to write about? That is someplace where ChatGPT can help you, where you put in what you do know and ask it, what am I missing? You can't do that with Google. And that brings me, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So being self-referential is really powerful here then. Because what I'm hearing you saying is we can talk to the tool and we can tell the tool what we would want as if we were approaching it, hey, I'm hiring you to write something for me. So if I was talking to another human being, I wouldn't expect them to guess what's on my mind. I would give them some references. I would give them an idea of the flow and the language that we use for our brand and the approach we use and the voice. And, again, another important thing to talk about is brand voice, right? Mm-hmm. So what is our brand voice? How do we put all that? So the writer would have to know all of this in order to be successful writing copy for our brand, if that's what we wanted to do. And what I'm hearing is the same thing would really hold true if we were talking to ChatGPT, we can't just let it guess. We have to really start to feed it this understanding of who we are and what our needs are. But this idea of being self-referential, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And this is what I love to use with ChatGPT as well is maybe I don't know exactly what I want or how to prompt. I'm just going to ask it. Let's say, go back to this blog example. I have a blog. It's for this target audience. This is their pain point. I want it to be a top of funnel. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, if I want to turn this into a blog, help me come up with a prompt that I can then feed you. And it will say, great, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And what I don't see is bop, 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 bop. So let's use this example for the blog here. If you're writing a blog, besides voice and everything like that, what are the other things that you know, kind of want to tell a writer? Maybe how long it is. Here's something else you need to think about. ChatGPT is never going to get it right the first time, just like a writer is never going to get it right the first time. So I kind of want to show you these scenarios where there's two things. It's not going to get the length right, first of all, and it's not going to get the wording right because it's all iterative. You could ask it to put in, I don't know, write me a 2,000 word white paper on whatever topic. It's not going to do it. All right. So let's jump into ChatGPT. I want to show you what actual prompting looks like because I use these tools and I'm still refining my prompts. So without finessing anything, let's just copy and paste what we have from our brief into ChatGPT and see what it spits out. All right. So what we have here is a very generic first draft. I'm sure if you read this on any sort of website that was maybe, not the most trusted, it's like top AI news, not like NBC News, this would be fine. But as soon as I read this, a couple things stand out to me. First
Well, it
line.
starts, by the way, the first in the ever-evolving landscape. It's Don LaFontaine from the 1990s doing In a World, right?
Why exactly? Why does every piece say in a world? It's like
in the field of. It always starts with the word in. You can always tell that, yeah, AI loves starting with in.
It's like, let's set the scene. Where are we? So this is a prime example of this is a red flag. Everybody is going to know that this is AI. I'm not saying AI is bad, but this is lazy writing where it's you never accept your first draft because as we just said, good writing is really good editing. So if we get this back, the next logical question is, how do we finesse this? What are the next subsequent prompts? What are the order? What I like to do is to make sure it sounds like me and not like AI, is to put in maybe like 4 or 5 say this, don't say this. So we give some more parameters. So let's start here. We'll say, thank you for this draft.
Always be kind to the AI. You
Absolutely.
Never know.
Okay. So here are 3 things to never do. And I always like to say that. We'll say number 1, don't start with exposition or mention in the world or any similar phrases. Always, and I'm just talking like a human who can't find a word right now, which is real. So let's just figure it out. It's like,
Now, can we offer a suggestion on how we want to start it since it is predictive and it will find the best words to do it? Can we tee it up and say, here's something you can start with that's a little bit closer to what I'd like you to do?
Yes. With something more. And even if we don't know the words, I always like to say something more value and benefit driven, something with a strong hook. So we'll do that. Number 2.
See what it comes up with.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just try that. We'll try number 2 later. Ooh, look at that. Imagine boosting your content creation efficiency by 70% while delivering hyper-personalized experiences to your audience.
That's already a lot more catchy. Yeah, it's much, much more of a hook than In a World.
But see that word, the word hook there, unless you know that your piece needs a hook, you don't know what you're looking for. If you're reading it and it's boring, I think that's where like being a content marketer or a teacher or someone who's a good communicator, that really works to our benefit, because I can read it and say, oh, this beginning line doesn't catch my attention. That means I need a hook. If you're not a content professional or can identify those things, it's really easy to get frustrated and just say, this isn't giving me what I want. It's like, well, you're not really telling it. You ever have your intern or like the new hires and potentially a power that's a little bit above is like so and so isn't doing a good job. They don't know what they're doing. They can only do as good of a job with like the information you provide them. It's the same thing. It's our
Absolutely.
job to train them.
Well, you know, one of the things I think about as a writer is that there are 26 letters in the English alphabet that we work with. Okay. We all get the same letters to work with. There's only 26 of them. But the words that we create out of those letters and the order of those words is what makes the biggest difference as to whether you're a good writer or not so much. And so in this context, exactly the same thing. We have to be able to tell the AI not only kind of the voice that we want, brand voice is so important here, but the opportunity, again, to be able to tell it what words, what phrases, and also just kind of push it toward, use a phrase like this. And I think once it understands, it's going to say, okay, now I understand you want more of a hook. I understand you want something that's going to grab people's attention. We're not putting just filler in there. We're cutting to the chase. And, you know, this is a benefit-driven statement. Imagine boosting your content creation efficiency by 70%. What marketer doesn't want to increase their content efficiency by anything, right? So, yeah. So now you start to, okay, now you're talking to me. You're talking to my needs. Let's keep going. And I think, again, when you write for an audience.
Yep.
Or you should be writing for an audience. So who are your people? Who are going to be reading your blog, your website content, whatever it is? Who are those people? And again, the magic question in most of marketing is find the right people to talk to and talk to them about things that matter most to them.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, to bring it back to being self-referential and a little bit meta, what I always like to do at the end, so let's pretend I work on this for an hour. It's great. What I'm going to do is go back to my brief, go back to my final blog, and ask ChatGPT, do you think this blog meets the needs of this brief? Simple things like that. It's
what happens if we were to ask that at this point? Let's see what happens.
Do you think this blog meets the needs of the brief inputs? And I like this as well because it doesn't just say yes or no. And maybe I disagree with this, but I like that it points out, this is what I said the audience is. The content is tailored, pain point. It addresses this specific pain point. I did say I wanted it to be at the top of the funnel. Yep, it does that. And it included a call to action. So technically it meets the needs. I don't think it does it in a way that is entirely appropriate for like the brand voice, but that's because I didn't upload my brand guidelines. I didn't give it anything. So keep that in mind with not knowing who I am, the brief prompts that I gave it. This is what I got in a few minutes. Imagine if I had put in my brand guidelines, my editorial guidelines, my style guidelines up front. You wouldn't have to go back. But that's a major problem with a lot of businesses, especially that I work with, is it lives all in people's heads. Lots of so many talented people, but I'm always asking, where does it live so everyone else can use it? And this is a perfect example. That's a resource I need, or you're going to end up spending a lot more time with these tools that are meant to save you time.
Right. Well, exactly right. And again, you know, there's something to be the old adage: it's better to be done than to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these things you can get there a lot more quickly. But again, I think I love the idea of being able to say, you know, these are the parameters I offered to you in my brief. Are we meeting the parameters, yes or no? And being able to go in here and say, let me share with you where we are, why I think we're doing a good job here. Now, we talk about brand guidelines, and again, to kind of massage this a little bit more and also get it into your voice as a writer. How would you approach this and say, okay, how do I make it sound like Lori Kirkstead wrote this as opposed to Spider-Gram or AI? Because we're all going to have a different writing style.
That's a really good point. So let me go back to what I said before is maybe I don't have anything articulated about what I want to sound like. I just, you know, maybe I'm a proliferate content creator and I just have lots of stuff out there, but no brand guidelines. Great. Let me take an existing piece and say, here's a few pieces that Lori Kirkstead wrote. Please make sure it adheres to the same voice, the same tone, the same style. So that's one kind of quick fix that you can do. And then while you have those pieces, use ChatGPT to then extract the information and say, what is my brand voice and style? What are you hearing? Because I actually find many clients say they want something like a fun, energetic tone or voice, whatever. And I often stop them and say, do you really know what fun means? Because fun is really, I think of fun as like, Chuck E. Cheese. And it's like, you sell medical equipment. You don't want to be fun. So it's that sort of thing.
But I mean, to that point, let's say it really was a fun brand. Let's say it's a brand, a lifestyle brand for
Yep.
young people, and it is exciting and it's, woohoo. How could we feed that kind of a prompt in compared to, say, a technology company or a bank, something that's very serious, someone dealing with your money? How would you approach that?
I seriously ask ChatGPT all the time. Like, what people tend to do is look for examples, and you can do that. Say, here's an example I like, here's an example I don't like. But I also like to ask them, what is the brand that does the best job with this sort of voice? Or if I admire a brand and can't articulate exactly what I like about it, I'll have them do an analysis on that brand and say, what are the commonalities in their content that I could extract?
So quite literally, you could go into your competitor's website and say, hey, do me an analysis. What is their brand voice? Who is their target audience? What are the main things that they focus on, and where are unique selling propositions compared to theirs?
Yep. But you hit on a really good point, is that, and I find this with a lot of my clients, is if you get them in a room, they can talk about who they are, what they stand for, but people might be saying different things and it doesn't live anywhere. So as long as you have a body of work and you can put it in, it's really interesting. It's a good experiment to see, this is what you think, but like, this is what the AI is telling you. Like, maybe you think your tone is this, but it's actually telling you it's not. Maybe that's why your content's not landing.
And by the way, I mean, yes, it's a tough, bitter pill to swallow. So when the machine critiques you for not being as good at something as you think you are, but it's good to have that feedback. I mean, I'll be honest with you. One of the challenges I think that a lot of writers face, writing is usually a very solitary thing.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you become a focus group of one, and you look at it and say, I'd read that, but that doesn't mean that anybody else will. This is the challenge, of course. Will your target customers and audience read this? Will it resonate with them? Because let's be honest, you're not the target. They are. And
Yep.
so how do you get out of your own head and think more about the people you're actually trying to communicate with? And again, let's say, I'm a educated senior executive dude, and I'm trying to reach somebody who's in their teens about my fun power drink, right? This is probably not going to generate the same level of understanding. So having that perspective or the ability to shift things over is going to be incredibly, incredibly important.
Yep. And let's say, so I'm thinking of an example I used for a client we wanted to appeal to VPs of marketing. And then the way that this copy was coming out just wasn't landing right. So I gave the tip to the junior writer. It's like, ask ChatGPT, does this sound like it would appeal to a VP of marketing? Make this sound like it was written by a VP of marketing. You might not know what that is, but try it out. It's also fun to say, make it sound like Mariah Carey wrote it, just to kind of play with those things. Like, it's really interesting to see what it can pull out with voice and tone.
And to that point, I want you to do something incredibly goofy now. I want you to come in and let's show everybody at home. What would it sound like if a pirate wrote this?
Please write this blog draft in the voice of a pirate.
Exactly.
Ahoy, me hearties. Imagine hoisting your content creation efficiency by 70% while serving up personalized experiences. That's fun. That's just fun.
It's just goofy. But I bring that up because, again, this is totally useless. I can't imagine anyone really being able. But the fact that ChatGPT can go and convert this into the voice of a pirate, good or bad, it gives you the idea of its flexibility and the ability to also find that different brand voice. If I said, I want you to talk in the voice of a popular teen, let's just throw it in there. What happens if we do this? A popular teen girl talking to her friends. Oh, Valley Girl, even. Okay.
So like imagine
OMG.
OMG, hey. You know what
Anyway,
actually
it's powerful. It's so powerful. Now to your point, uh, the VP of marketing, and
exactly.
again, what can it draw from to provide you with some guidance? So again, getting out of your own head as a writer and into the tool to allow it to help you.
You know what I will say? I think this is an excellent teaching tool for writing to show people. Like it's crazy.
100%.
It's silly and it's crazy and no one writes like this, but it's the point. Imagine that we're having this ideal customer persona that's a pirate, and you want to talk to them.
Right. Right. Although it seems to have lost the Valley Girl halfway through this process.
Well, now this is now make it
Oh,
sound
I'm
like
sorry. You made VP of marketing. Never mind. I missed the cue. Anyway, I love what this can do. Yep. I love the fact that it allows us to come in here and find brand voice. I think this is one of the most powerful things. And I think what we need to do in future blogs is to talk a little bit more about the specifics of how we might go in to a task. Let's say that we want to be able to create, landing pages. Something really powerful to grab people's attention, a hook. Let's get some people to provide us with some of their information. Maybe it's their first name and their email address so we can start a conversation with them via email. What are the things that are going to appeal to them? What are the kinds of giveaways that we can offer them that are going to make them go, I want that. I want to do that right now. And allow us to also make sure we're focusing on reaching the right people with our message and not just people who want to win stuff or whatever it is. I think there's an awful lot we can do here. So again, unfortunately, we're out of time for today, Lori, but I think this is such a powerful, powerful tool. And hopefully folks get an opportunity to just see the flexibility here. And again, this is not a tool. This is not a vacuum cleaner. You don't plug it in the wall and it just does what it does. No. This, like anything else, it's a personal assistant. And your personal assistant is going to start where it is going to start. And your part of your job is to get in there and to help that personal assistant understand what it is you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to talk to. Because once it has an understanding, then it can run with it. But if you're just pushing buttons going, write me something, guess what? It's going to write you something.
It'll write you something, but you're not going to like it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're like, there we go, we got some content for our website now. Well, no, you don't. There's a great line. I don't remember. I think it's Truman Capote once was criticizing another writer's work, and he said, "That's not writing. That's typing." And that's a little bit harsh, a little bit of shade thrown there. But again, we want what we create to be writing and not typing, because ChatGPT will type you up all sorts of stuff. We need to be able to bring it back and focus on it.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like, this is a tool I want everyone to use. And the best way to learn a tool is to just jump in and use it. Try these prompts, have fun with it, be silly, see what it can do. But like you just said, it is iterative. It's not press a button and you get it out. It's take each piece for what it is. The fundamentals of good content marketing and good writing don't exist. You just need to know how to use this tool to get you there faster.
100%. Well, as always, hey, thank you so much for hanging. It's always good to get together and do a little mind whacking with one another. And by the way, for you folks at home, feel free to reach out to us if you have any suggestions for future blogs. We would love to hear about it. We're just getting started here. We're just doing this as two friends getting together, having a good time, and we want to be able to have a good time with you. So you can reach out to us. Find me on LinkedIn, on Spidergram, somewhere on LinkedIn, and Lori Kirkstead also on LinkedIn. And,
absolutely, love a good DM.
Yeah, easy to find us, easy to reach out. Let us know what's on your mind and how we might be able to help you out, any kind of topics you have, and we'll be able to take from there. But Lori, as always, thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing it. And we'll do this again next week. Talk to everyone.
Same to you, Spider. All right. See you next week, everybody.